All right, guys. On today's episode, I want to talk about my interpretation of spiritual awakenings. And for the sake of this episode, I'll be calling it just awakenings. Um, so, question: Are you feeling like you're losing your mind, having racing thoughts, questioning everything, seeing life from a higher perspective, maybe loving nature, maybe having flashbacks of childhood or your past, feeling like your life has been a bunch of lies or BS. And not because someone told you this is how you should be feeling, not this bandwagon stuff right now that's trending, but naturally it's just been a feeling that has come over you and you've sought out answers on your own, researching and seeking refuge for the way you've been feeling off, disconnected, etc. Some people feel like awakenings is just life and people are blowing a lot of this stuff is out of proportion. And I agree. It is. It's about the human experience, and it's about that realization that we are spirits having a human experience, and there's more to life than we have been given privy to. In a sense, it's just a higher perspective. You're questioning everything you've been told because something has triggered, thus awakening your spirit. And I like to. Spirit has many meanings. But right now, I'm thinking of spirit in the sense of the energy and the will, and this energy and will to evolve and heal. And it has unlocked the gates to your higher self. Some people say the higher self. There's so much confusion when it comes to the spiritual community because of the jargon, which is like the language and the vocabulary. It can make things so confusing because people come up with their own creative ways to explain the same thing. So there is a foundational sense of spirituality, but it's so hard to decode sometimes because there's so much personal flair that people add to it. Like higher self, people say is like the soul, and there's just other things. Sorry about the background noise. I'm right here by my patio, and the walls are pretty thin, but hey, we do what we can do. But yeah, so it has unlocked the gates of your higher self, and the war in your mind maybe has begun. It's not something you can really stop because it's life. Life doesn't stop until, well, it doesn't, because I don't believe it stops even once you've transitioned, from the body. I feel like the spirit continues to live on. And see, that's another definition of spirit, and that's more of just this life force energy of, you. Once the body's gone, there's still this subtle body of energy, that life force energy. Um, but yeah, so the flashbacks are really, to me, illuminating things in your past that could possibly be ignored or reframed and used to help you see it from things in your life from a more positive light. And you can release whatever that story or moment made you feel and reflect on the lessons that you learned and move on. You also can use these to teach. Now that you can see it from a deeper level headed way, the observer perspective. But be mindful of these energies as they emerge. Every thought doesn't have to be fact or your truth. Everything you think is intuition or spirit talking, maybe just the dense energies that's awakening from your subconscious programming and conditioning, or the ego or shadows, which is basically the unconscious part of your mind, or ancestral DNA, or inner child wounds, or the wounded womb, and other energies within your system, your energetic body that needs to be healed, reframed, released, or adapted into your new way of thinking. Basically, like the book says, the body keeps the score, but the mind is the interpreter. So a lot of times, the thing once it comes to your mind, by the time a thought has reached you, it's illuminating something within your body. It's illuminating the energies within your body. So that's why I say don't believe everything your mind tells you, because sometimes if your body is still in a wounded state, the interpretations may come from a negative or a less evolved perspective until you have healed and released and transmuted that energy, which is basically changing it from a dark perceived perspective to more of a positive perspective or just a broader, more understanding. You have the power to change those stories, thoughts, beliefs, or narratives. This is that transmutation. This is that alchemy. This is the changing from dark to light. This will shift your energy and will continue. And this will shift your energy and the will to continue on your journey, no longer stuck in traffic by your trauma, conditioning, and wounds that can play or act as roadblocks in your journey. For me, awakening the Black spirit, especially in America, is about transcending all the densities and roadblocks of this physical plane that we have been encapsulated in while coming down to earth. The mind, body, and character adaptations that hold our spirits hostage in oppression. We can't truly ascend with all the baggage we carry. The dense mindset and energies we carry come from walking through life constantly being told things or being put in situations or seeing depictions of people who look like us that shatter our spirit, our psyche, and confirm the assumptions or the mental interpretations we carry. So a lot of people say, shift your mind, think another way. But for us, it's like the world is constantly proving our mind right. So it's hard to root in a sense of security and safety when these things are happening to us. But we have to know and have to cultivate that faith that we are divinely guided and protected. I chose to help my people regulate, decode, and decipher psychology, spirituality, and worldly resources and information to protect the Black psyche. There's a leader for every level. I was jumping on a level that I was not prepared for when I started my spiritual awakening because my ego was in a rush to attain spiritual tribal connections and validation. But I now know foundation is key for sustainability. And like I always say, a foundation and faith can never fail. When you awaken to the idea that you are a spirit having a human experience, and to break it down, like I said, the spirit is like this life force energy within your physical body, that which is, considered the vessel, and this energy drives your will to fulfill your destiny and passions and learn and live in the present moment in this lifetime. Once you realize that, you gain so much personal power. You realize that you have to continue to nurture this will, cater to this will of the spirit within you so that it continue to help you move along on your journey. As you begin to heal, realize it's not about right or wrong, should, shouldn't, must, but knowing that you have the ability to make conscious, autonomous choices about how you take on challenges in your life to gain peace and solace. Knowing you can now stay in the driver's seat of your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, lifestyles, etc., and be aware of the fact that they can impact your feelings and reactions. But know you have the power and options, not this black or white thinking, but options, a spectrum of options to transform, change, shift, and alchemize. Alchemy is the sense of shifting and changing and transmutation. Like I said, this is why I say it can get confusing because there's so many words for the same meaning, aka synonyms. But yeah, alchemize them to suit a more empowering, evolving, and progressive lifestyle. However, be mindful and take everything with a grain of salt. Whenever you're seeking outside external resources for anything, especially coming from a human vessel, I'm not talking about going into nature or, some people are into like spiritual totems and animals and the energies from crystals and the energies from herbs and incense and all these different things. I'm not talking about that because those aren't very, they don't have the types of feelings and the mental constructs like humans. We are flawed beings. We have unconscious biases, and so you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Only take the things that really resonate with you, but be mindful of that as well. Because, like I said, if your intuition is not healed, then sometimes you can't always trust it in the beginning. You may, or I should say, you may think if you don't truly understand how to work with your intuition, then don't just believe everything that your mind is telling you, because your intuition is not those types of thoughts. It's more of a feeling, more of gut feelings, more of energies. I'm still learning to how to trust it and recognize my intuition. So that's why I say, and it's been over a year and a half, so that's why I say you still have to kind of just pray and set intentions of what you want when you're seeking this information. But yeah, so take what resonates with or works for the life you want, not anyone else, and especially not the ego or the wounded energies in your energetic system as they awaken to heal. Kind of what I was just saying. Not doing what you feel you should do out of guilt or obligation, because in our culture we make things trendy, and so with this spirituality trending, some people are jumping on bandwagons and following people and doing things out of this image or label that has now been attached to spiritual to being a black spiritualist. And it's like some stuff may not be resonating with you, some stuff may not be you, and it's like all this stuff is being programmed into your head that your true self loves sage and loves Palo Santo and loves crystals, and you may be like, I'm not really into it right now. Maybe that could be a part of your journey, but you don't want to start internalizing this guilt and judgment because of what someone else is telling you. Take your time, do things step by step. Before you jump on this bandwagon of all doing all this extra aesthetic type things, you need to really get past the basic, I don't even want to say the basic, but the densities that come from just living your life at this moment. Like, we're adding too much stuff on top of it. So like I said, put the obligation and guilt to the side. Just pick what gives you sustainability and peace of mind. We all out here question life and not knowing what to believe based on opinions being sold as facts. But you may never get what you think is facts from someone else. Faith in God sustains my peace of mind. Like I said, knowing we as people don't and may never have all the answers, even in science. But the facts, stories, and truths you've been told and internalized may not be relevant or empowering or useful in the future, and that's okay. God's will surpasses any tips and tricks. What's meant to happen is going to happen ultimately. You will still reach your destination no matter what you choose. You just may take a longer or harder route instead of the shortcuts. All of these energies until now have been fueling your spirit with densities that have oppressed it in your higher self. And as you awaken to this new level of consciousness, you begin to see life with a little more light in a broader perspective. You begin to align more with your higher self as the constructs in your mind begin to crumble and the false identity or ego slash monster mentality begins to die and transform um, into a mental construct that can gas you up, motivate you, liberate you, empower you with more authenticity. Be mindful of, but be mindful of what you fuel your mind with as you go through the awakening, because what you feel it with can put you into more illusions to fulfill someone else's agenda or an agenda from an aspect of your own unhealed mm, mind desires or energy that doesn't lead you to your heart's desires or your spirit's or soul desires and progression, but instead to a place of stagnation where you're not moving, where you're stuck in this rut and don't understand why. So usually something life altering is what triggers that spiritual awakening, like a divorce, a loss of a job, a psychological crisis, or prolonged downtime, pandemic, usually triggers awakenings. And when you think about it, it makes sense because you're sitting here in this moment of stillness. You're sitting here in this moment of grief, of intense sorrow and intense um, contemplation. Like, and this is when you start questioning things. What does this mean for me, or what am I going to do now? Or you're going through this psychological crisis, or depression, or mental breakdown, or um, post partum depression, PTSD, all post traumatic slaves, all these things, midlife crisis. And so they start to mess with your mind, and it gets to a point where your mind is at a breaking point. And I feel like at that point it's weakening. So that gives your spirit just enough energy in your soul, just enough energy to step in, and that's that awakening, like something has triggered in you. But like I said, the labeling now on the spiritual awakening has a stigma attached to it, as everything else that hits our community begins to do. We're losing our minds, which is kind of good, since it needs to be lost to be replaced by an evolved truth. The saying I always like to say, be ye transformed by the renewal of the mind. And with the renewal of the mind, it usually starts within the body. Don't we in a society that wants you to be stuck in your mind over analyzing things, but a lot of times it is starting within the body. And those thoughts will get transformed in that. It's a top down, meaning started from head to body and a bottom up. You got to know how to balance it and figure out what helps and works for you. But ultimately, we are all really getting stuck in the mind because we're not being taught the real deal that puts us up on game. We're so focused as to what's happening to us. We're so confused as to what's happening to us. But knowing you can't bypass the healing once you've got that ball rolling, nothing to be scared of. You got to go through it to grow through it, to heal the collective mind and all other coping mechanisms, defense mechanisms, addictions, personas, shadows, mental constructs that you've internalized and adapted in the subconscious mind and as an individual to survive in this autopilot state, cruise control, or the sunken place, the backseat of the car, aka life. But be aware, we're all going to be on different pages until we get on board and start shifting the collective mind and accepting individual perspectives. Not trying to make everybody conform to one set of beliefs or one way of being. We got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The only way to share honestly, having compassionate conversations, empathy, releasing judgment, racism, prejudice, white supremacy, the need to control or conform, superiority, guilt, shame, dominance, culture, and the list goes on and on. We are behind in this idea. I feel that there aren't many teachers actually guiding our people with master mentality, aka slave mentality, to salvation or mental freedom and spiritual liberation with real solutions. There needs to be a more beginner friendly influence that caters to the people who know nothing about spirituality, the psyche, or holistic wellness. Our egos are not good at the moment. We have to transcend, heal little by little with ease and grace. That's why I make note on certain roadblocks I feel the collective has, especially within our Black community. So I kind of have some little tips on how to start. Like I said, it's sometimes hard for me to put things into uh, such a structured way because I'm living it. I'm actually I'm going through this journey with y'all. Like it gets real out here. I go through my moments of depression. I go through my moments of feeling like I'm losing it or whatever. And so yeah, I don't have time. Like, oh, I'm losing my mind. Let me go get some notes. Let me go get a paper and pen. But anyway, let's get to it. How to start. Don't release your free will to anyone or start invoking all kinds of spirits and deities if you are not clear on your intentions and don't know what you're doing. You are a co-creator of your reality, in control of your life, not your family, partner, thoughts, emotions, spirit, etc. But you can ask for guidance when you feel you need it or called to. Call on the Most High or the most benevolent and venerated ancestors within your spirit team, your spirits, guides, angels, ancestors, whatever you want to call it, but you really need to just really sit with yourself, pray, meditate, see how you want to do. I always call on God. God is first. My higher self is first. Keep praying and set intentions that God's word and love is all you receive, and that the highest vibration is love, and that any message you receive empower you and your soul and spirit and the desires you want to attain. Don't judge yourself, especially your mind or ego. Just observe and know when you ignore and know when to ignore and when to change a thought or belief, especially if it fuels you with guilt or shame. and judgment. I'm gonna say that, so you're gonna get tired of hearing me say guilt, shame, or judgment. I'm gonna get a shirt with that because it's so true. Guilt, shame, and judgment attached to anything is really a major roadblock. You can't get past it until you understand and shift your perspective on whatever that guilt, shame, and judgment is. I always say the things in your life, like emotions, thoughts, and all this, is kind of like the music in the car. Sometimes it's empowering you and making and change and uplifting your mood, making that drive good. Oh, this is a good song. But sometimes, sorry, the mowing the lawn or whatever. But sometimes the music can be a damper, and you're like, oh, this music is killing my vibe. Let me change it. You have that power to change it. Okay, the next one, let's move on. Root work. Start healing from the bottom three chakras. The root is the first one. The sacral chakra is the second one, and the solar plexus is the third one. Other practices may go by other names or something, but this is what I've been introduced to. Start. If you don't start from the bottom, you'll be manifesting a byproduct of fear, anxiety, and unresolved wounds. This is why I say we're in a very mind-centered society. So a lot of times we're getting we're jumping too far to the head. We want to go literally. We're jumping too far to the head, and we don't think about the roots. And that's why I always say, my motto is where we get to the roots to find the solution. You can't just go straight to the head because the head is not going to lead you in the right spot in a sense. And that comes with healing of that ancestral inner child wound, the wound, distorted feminine and masculine energies, the shadow, the ego work. Those are things, kind of basic things that of the foundation of the healing process. Make a declaration. Write down all the things that hold you back or you're insecure about, but set a prayer and intentions to heal them one at a time or with ease and grace. Some of the stages or symptoms that I've experienced, like I said, there's a lot of videos and they kind of try to break it up and say this is stage. It's everybody has their own idea. And like I said, I'm actually going through the journey, so I don't really feel like I can give you this is all the stages you're going to go through. These are just some things that I've experienced. Feelings of grief, bliss, depression, ecstasy, confusion, paranoia, skepticism, anger, this voided or numb feeling, frustration, joy, the need to know, like an obsessive compulsive desire to research or confirm the ego identities, and overwhelm as the energies within your system awaken to be healed, reframed, or released. So yeah, those are some things. Of course, there's a lot of other ones, but this is just kind of the not to scare you or anything, but just be aware of. Like I said, as long as you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. Don't do something because you feel you should, must, have to. Know you are choosing to make an executive decision as the driver of your car in this road trip we call life. No longer sitting in the back seat while being like a puppet with the mind being the puppet master. That master mentality running over you, and you're not even thinking with your own mind, but you're thinking with this colonizer's mind, this white supremacy mentality. Just because you don't know all the jargon or the spiritual definitions and vocabulary or labels doesn't make you less enlightened. Like I said, there's so much labeling around spirituality now. You don't even need to know them, but you can always learn them as you go along. And a good teacher kind of breaks things down and doesn't assume or make you feel bad for not knowing some kind of language because they was beginners, just like everybody else. A lot of times people get so arrogant or thinking like, they just walking around because they become confident now. Like they don't know that you're a teacher. I can't, I'm sorry, but as a teacher, there should be some level of compassion for the fact that you're teaching, meaning we don't know what we're being taught. That's why you're teaching it to us. So stop trying to act like I should know something. This is why we have so many defense mechanisms and we can't feel comfortable being vulnerable. And there is no safe space because everybody has these defenses up instead of just being real and vulnerable and speaking like, bro, I know where you came from. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna take my time. I'm gonna show. I'm gonna break it down in this way, that way, this way, whatever. Let's figure out how you learn best. Create a foundation and beliefs that sustain your spirit or energy or will to keep going. There's no right or wrong, only what works for you. For me, I'm being a little repetitive. For me, God and love keeps me grounded. Whatever gives you peace of mind, get out of that fear funk. Don't get stuck in the healing shadow, that loop, trying to shift all your beliefs at once, and stay flexible, knowing beliefs can shift at any given time or moment based on your circumstances. Don't let the ticking clock of this society make you get impatient about ascending. Like I said, I went too hard and was trying to do this and do that and do everything. And that's kind of me. But when you learn yourself, when you start to analyze yourself and become a master of self, you know what kind of person you are. And I'm an obsessive compulsive person. I get to a point where you give me an inch and I'm taking 30 miles. So that's my fault. I had to learn. And that kind of what fuels my spiritual activism. Understand that you nor anybody else really knows nothing, but only what works for them or you. And you are allowed to share your perspective to heal those who resonate with you. Those who resonate with you, they will gravitate and they'll keep coming back. Be aware as you leave the idea of staying in this mainstream box that people may no longer feel like you fit in, but know that they're just still living in that construct. That's their reality. You don't have to internalize it and their projections of, what they believe is their beliefs. You have the right to create a belief system and a reality that frees you. You know, they're still in that subconscious mind, those patterns, those conditionings, their mind based in the ego, comparison, and judgment that keeps you away from your true, authentic self, not the false self that has been created by the ego based on wounds. These things keep you stuck. Release the image and socialization of what a black person looks like, acts like, practices, believes, talks like, dress like, eats like, behaves like. It's all personal preference. God wants people of all walks of life to speak the word. You are for your audience, not necessarily for everyone. Until we get past superficiality and aesthetics, we won't be able to just hear the word and get the message from anyone, but from the people we'd like to watch. And that's okay for now. You start your journey out where you started. And just a disclaimer, I use God as my belief system as who I believe is a higher power, but people use other things. They use spirit, they use divine, they use universe, whatever. As you heal, you start to recognize your triggers and how they fuel you with false narratives. And once you're able to recognize them, you can be ready to with a counterattack because you'll have your toolbox to fix the roots and find the solution. Triggers are big teachers and they illuminate a lot of the wounds that you've experienced. But once you start become conscious about that, then you now can get ahead of it and not be so reactive and more responsive from a calm, level-headed way. And here's a couple of examples that I like to kind of give people examples of something. So you get into an argument with a group of people, you've all moved on, moved forward or whatever, forgiven everything. But now every time you see them together and you're not with them, you automatically start thinking, you get in your head thinking, man, what they saying about me? They talking about me, they plotting on me. Or you're running in the park and you smile at another sister and she doesn't respond. So you automatically go into this trigger response of this false narrative you've been told. Instead of thinking the best, you assume the worst based on your subconscious programming, ancestral traits, inner child wounds, internalized insecurities. Like, why we always gotta be rude? She probably hating on me. She thinks she all that, or maybe, or that's the negative way. Or maybe she was in her zone and didn't see you. Maybe she got her earbuds in and didn't hear you. Or maybe she's in her head too, or anything that the, besides the thought that we think is true that fuels us with these low feelings. And when in situations where you can ask questions, do it instead of assuming, because like I said, we usually assume the worst. I always said assuming is the devil. It will give you more peace of mind and quiet that ego, proving it wrong as you continue to prove that prove it wrong to the your entire system, your entire inner system. Again, stepping into the driver's seat, allowing you to flow in life with less mental resistance and roadblocks. This also helps to be able to see that some things are not that serious. And you can laugh at the crap in life that happens, kind of like these universe tests or curveballs, or, like they say, sometimes God tests your faith. Example, your son saying, I want daddy, while you're dealing with internalized motherhood guilt. Now I could handle this situation in multiple ways, and the realization of options is part of getting through the illusions the mind creates. I can be like, oh my gosh, yeah, man, I'm a bad mom because he wants his daddy and not me. Now that's a very black and white thinking, or it could just be he's just said, "I want dad." He wants his dad. It has nothing to do with you. A lot of times we take things personal because that's how the mind sees. The mind is very self-centered in a sense. It just sees it from its perspective and not other things. Other options. Black and white thinking, like I said. Now let's get to some common mistakes people make. I feel like when they're on the journey, binging spirituality or information in general. The ego wants to research to be in the know, because it's scared that you're going to figure out that it's just a facade, it's just a fake identity, and you don't have to be bound by whatever it makes you feel or think or do. The brain is a muscle, and it can go into overdrive or be overstimulated or overwhelmed. It can be overworked. I've gone through this so many times because, like I said, I'm obsessive compulsive sometimes, and my mind will get like bogged down where I'm like literally hands on my head, like, then I can tell that means I need to just chill, stop, relax, breathe, have faith, surrender. Thinking life gonna be perfect and blissful all the time. Thinking you're not gonna get triggered anymore. You will, but you will now be able to be more conscious in how you respond to these situations when they happen. I mentioned that before. Focusing solely on spirituality, not holistic or human needs, losing sight of reality and rationale, thinking all answers are these prescribed spiritual problems and not a medical or physical one. Grounding your energy is a must. Sometimes we get too much in our head, and we need to ground that energy. Go for a walk in nature, do earthing where you walk barefoot, pray, meditation, just getting more into your body and not believing everything you read in spiritual in this new age spirituality where everybody thinking, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. Sometimes it's a legitimate issue, and it's not, oh, this miraculous thing that's happening. Trying to focus on like, and it goes back to trying to focus on the mind, not the root heart or body. Thinking meditation means no thoughts. No, the thoughts will still be there, but the more you break down the illusions, proving them wrong, and releasing or reframing them, the more they will become quiet or less intrusive. Doing things because you think it makes you more worthy or better than someone based on a persona or label of how being spiritual looks. That's what I said. That labeling makes people do things not out of a genuine place, but because they want to look a certain way or feel better about themselves. Hey, it's okay. Accept yourself where you at. If you still like to listen to, hood music, ratchet music, but you gonna pray and do your meditation and do your incense or whatever. Spirituality is more than these practices. That's what people don't understand. It's the heart, it's the mind and the body that is putting us at a sense of just peace and overall being able to look at life in a different way and knowing that you have options. It's not all about all the aesthetics that you do. Some things get you closer to home. I like to call home is like where heart is, where the spirit, where God is. Like that's how I look at it. So there are many channels and energetic things that can help you get there, but you don't need all of them because your biggest resource is yourself. Obsessing, getting stuck in the shadow world of healing, having fun every moment ain't gotta be about healing something. Fun feeds the body, mind, and spirit. It's a gateway to peace for me. And a lot of times we don't really talk about that. Now I understand the drive to overwork and find answers when you have the bigger goals of teaching, but that's counterproductive of your healing. To think you are so broken that you got to be healed all the god doggone time. So being able to be present and at peace is the best healing of all. Remember, everyone is not going to have all of the perspectives or issues you may have had. Don't tell family and friends what you're going through, not all the time. You will get a lot of projections, and it can fuel your paranoia and illusions in the mind. I mean, it just depends. You know your family, you know what kind of reactions you may get. It may not be the best option, but you be the judge of that. Give yourself grace. Every little thing about you doesn't need fixing, like I said. For example, I grind my teeth. It's an anxiety response, but I look at it as a way to connect with my body and know what to do to self-soothe more effectively, or what's going on. Let me stop and think. Okay, my body's feeling a little anxious and nervous. But the thing is, what people don't understand is, for Black people, things are a little more harder because we are in a constant state of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, whatever they want to say. We're in a constant state of trauma. We're in a constant state of anxiety, fear. And so we can't fix everything at once. Some things are still going to be, we're still going to be processing, and we're going to need to keep our sanity while we're healing other stuff. To me, right now, grinding my teeth kind of helps me get through a stressful moment. It may not be the most ideal coping mechanism, but for me, it's working. And so I can't beat myself up feeling like I got to fix everything because of that. Sorry, guys. But yeah, um, see, this is a good one. Seeking social media for answers. It is hard to filter, especially since all the people are going through their awakenings themselves. And some have personal agendas fueled around likes and shares. Like, come on, that's something you really need to avoid. Sometimes the people who we fear or resent are really speaking truth, but the ego is resistant and defensive because we can't handle the truth a lot. The initial response is resistance, and then later you may think about it and you may like, you know what, they really did have some truth. The ego's first thing is defense. The first thing a lot of times instinctively that you do is be defensive. But then as you are relaxed and your mind is more calm, and you can think about things a little more level-headed, then you can be able to see past that wounded ego. It's always trying to interpret all the energies emerging into whatever stories it can think of because it wants to be in the know. As they shed light or truth onto the shadows or conditioning, revealing the illusions in your head that have been holding you back. So these teachers sometimes, who are the ones I feel like are, with good intentions, sometimes they're shedding light. Their words are shedding light onto the wounds and the shadows of you. They're speaking that truth. That's light. And that light that's being shed on the darkness within you, and when I say darkness, I don't mean evil and all that, but just, the dark things that you need to get past. It can be jarring. It can be something that's shocking to your system. So that's where that instant reaction to the being defensive comes from. It's a shock to you energetically. And so the activism to me is be aware of influencers, teachers, leaders, whatever filling you with beliefs that fill their pockets or agendas. Sometimes they're talking about scarcity or lack, doing these collective readings and charging and not making it more donation based for collective readings, and you don't even know if the person talking to you or not. You don't understand what you're listening to, and they're promoting. Oh, you don't have scarcity, don't have lack. Give me money. You just gotta kind of know and stop seeking people for salvation. You gotta sometimes go to yourself. And I'm that kind of person. I know my character is a very dependent person on I'm always second guessing my own best judgment, but you'll have to learn how to cultivate that self-trust. And there's a lot of white supremacy within the spiritual, how can I say, within spirituality, just the whole colonizing and oppression of the Black or African American, like, roots of spirituality, which to me I feel like is the roots of majority of all spirituality. And so that's part of that spiritual activism, is that bringing light to the fact that there are a lot of things that we don't resonate with just by the mere appearance, because in Western society, Western culture, a lot of it is being shadowed or not recognized or not referenced or mentioned. And so, we need to try to find more people who are for us, by us. But it's okay to pay. Don't get it twisted. But don't be out here getting robbed by people acting like they're trying to heal and help the community, but really, they've lost that good intention. Sometimes you can lose the good intention. Be mindful of women or men spreading generalizations, foster biased narratives, not disclosed as their opinion. So they're not letting you know that, hey, I'm a human. These are my filters. Like I can be biased too, or fear based on their own wounded energy to fulfill the needs of, spirits or deities they serve. Not all spirits that transition have a healed ego. We're one mind, and sometimes you don't know where that person was when they passed on or what they went through. Everything that people preach is spirit is not divine consciousness and has not been discerned between personal messages and collective messages. Some messages are from your wounded spirit or shadows and haven't been filtered objectively yet. Take note of this possibility. Collective readings can be fickle as well. Like I said, for me, everything that my mind was so negatively centered, and everything that was negative that was said by a reader, I took it as that was my fact. The freaking reader could have said, "Oh, you're gonna die tomorrow." I'm gonna think I'm gonna die tomorrow. So it's like that's what I mean when I say the collective readings, which are readings that are done for multiple people. It could be virtual, like they just on they're on the computer video, and they're like, "This is reading." Anybody who turn it on, basically, just listen to this and see if it resonates with you. Those can be fickle because if you don't know what to believe or you're seeking these answers so hard that you can fall into a trap of just getting all kind of information that fuels your subconscious, and what you thinking is you attracting, and you thinking it's happening because they were right, but really you just attracting that reality because it's in your mind. You're attracting your fears. Ooh. But yeah, that's kind of all I have for now. Like I said, as I go through this journey, more things unfold about spiritual awakenings. Just kind of know that it's just life. It's just about becoming more conscious, more intentional about healing and evolving, and that knowing that you have options, autonomy, you have personal power to choose the way that you think, react, heal, and yeah. So I want to end this video, guys. Hopefully this was in a way that you can receive and understand it. If you have, pray over it, think about it. Only take what resonates with you. All right.